You have MLB realignment on here. I know that's kind of a broad topic here for a show like this. Perhaps we won't get into the weeds of it because it seems like a very good off-season topic. Maybe you just needed to fill in something on the back half. I got to tell you, Nick, I'm going to say something probably a little controversial again. People are going to hate me for it because they always do. I think Rob Manfred's actually done a pretty serviceable job. I really do. Rob Manfred, in my opinion, has done such a better job than any other commissioner that I've personally been able to follow, Bud Selig being the main one that I know of. And I get that he has some flaws in regards to some things that he said. I get that he called the trophy a piece of metal. I get that maybe you were upset by the way they handled the whole Astros situation. I get that maybe you think that some of the comments he makes perhaps about certain business decisions that they've made are, perhaps they lack a little bit of empathy in certain areas. But the truth is I feel like he's made this a better game. And I am very hopeful that hopefully in the next CBA here that he will continue to help make this game a little more well-rounded. We can discuss perhaps exactly how he can do that later, but he did kind of throw out a little bit of a hint, Nick, of something that he's been thinking about. One of those was kind of realigning geographically what some of these divisions look like, and perhaps your thoughts on the whole matter.
Yeah, I agree on Rob Manfred. I think he's done a fantastic job overall. Now, he's got a massive undertaking here to keep the sport playing at some point. I'm not going to say if they miss half a season, it's a failure on him, because we'll have to see how it all plays out. But his legacy could certainly still be very impacted here in 2026. But Jim Bowden put out a piece today, and we don't need to go into crazy detail talk about it 1:05 a.m. But it got me thinking. Bowden had an idea for realignment, and I had never thought of, what about realignment to fix competitive balance, Trace? What if you put the teams in smaller markets in the same divisions? Would that not sort of fix the
It certainly helps. Certainly helps.
Yeah, I mean, so Bowden had his, and I kind of took it and I ran with it a little bit more. He's saying Charlotte and Nashville would be the teams. But just for example, Reds, Guardians, Pirates, the Nashville team. I mean, that would be a pretty competitive advantage, and it's nice that it works out geographically so well. I think you would play those teams a lot more. You maybe play everyone else just once. And yeah, you're going to still have a bunch of wild cards. There'd be 8 divisions. So if you kept the same amount of teams, there'd still be, I guess, total of 6 wild cards. So it almost, so the higher divisions are going to have still an opportunity to get maybe 3 teams in. But I think it would be a way to fix the sport, or at least significantly make a dent in fixing the sport competitively.
It helps. It definitely helps. I think that there's 2 ways to look at competitive balance, in my opinion. One of them is, what are your chances to make the postseason in general? And then, I guess, farthermore, the way that baseball is, and kind of the sport lends itself to a degree of random chances of something doing something improbable. I go back to the NBA for the longest time, right? Whoever had LeBron James, it just seemed like that was the team that was destined to probably get to the finals and or win the championship. If you had Michael Jordan, or you really can't do that in baseball per se. You can't say that, well, if you have one player. Now, on the opposite side of that, I would say, just as a fan, the same way that maybe the NCAA is going to have issues with maybe some mid-major teams in regards to trying to keep players and trying to hold fan bases and trying to build up, I guess, what I would call younger fans in those smaller markets to believe that they can follow one specific player for their career and they can stay there. That's really the NFL is king. The NFL is 100% a league where if you find a star player, or you have a star player, and they, for all intents and purposes, I guess, enjoy their time there, they're gonna spend their whole career there, because there's no financial benefit to going anywhere else. So I guess those are the 2 things, in my opinion, Nick. One is, yes, I think that MLB realignment from a divisions standpoint, to your case, is great. I would take that in a heartbeat. What you just showed on that screen with basically plotting the two New York teams together, putting Boston and Philadelphia in the same division, making the two LA teams in the same division with San Francisco and the Padres. Now, I will say the Padres, I'm not totally sure about, their market size, et cetera, but they've had success recently, so maybe they'd have an issue with it. But you have both Chicago's in there. Detroit's probably going to be a little upset, perhaps, but nonetheless, you have St. Louis, that's a great baseball city, so they shouldn't have a problem, I wouldn't think. But then you start to get kind of into those smaller markets, and you give even you go outside of the Cincinnati, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Nashville, the Minnesota, Milwaukee, Kansas City, and Colorado one is another good, obviously excellent opportunity for those franchises to maybe try to take foot and get themselves into postseason baseball. I take that in a heartbeat, Nick. What I'm hoping will also happen is I just hope that they find a way where if you're a smaller market and you really value a player and or a couple players that are homegrown, that there's some revenue sharing system that forces ownership to have to be able to offer those opportunities to those homegrown players. And I know everyone's going to say, oh, you can make it a salary floor, and you could tell your owners to not be cheap or whatever term you want to use. But the true issue with that is that if there's no cap at all and there's no ability to say, well, you can't get paid more than this, it's going to be hard for me to ever believe that you're never going to get something taken away from you, because the bigger markets are just going to offer more money, because more times than not, it's a hobby to whoever owns those franchises. So that's a story for another day. Like you said, maybe at 1 o'clock or 1:10 now, Eastern time in the morning. It's not the perfect time to maybe go into the weeds of all this, but I think it's a good topic to bring up. I also think it's fair to say that at least we're talking about it. I am thankful for that. I'm thankful that we're at least giving it a thought to try to make this thing make somewhat of sense. Because right now, it doesn't make enough sense for me to really buy into there not being a work stoppage if everyone thinks this is perfectly fine. And I'm not here to say that I don't want baseball, to be clear, but I want this stuff to get fixed before we just sign another CBA. That's all.
Yeah, two just real quick points. Number one, I have a sort of fix to like the NBA has that whole offer sheet thing. I think one thing baseball could do is they could make the qualifying offer, they could make it bigger. So if the Reds offer, so let's say the Reds keep Ellie De La Cruz all the way up till his free agency, and he wants to go sign with someone else. Well, if you're going to be a player that's going to sign a deal of $500 million plus, it's not just one draft pick. It's maybe like 3 draft picks. And that would make the players be like, I want to consider Cincinnati's offer more, because it's going to make me a little bit more valuable in free agency. That could be a way to kind of counter that. I don't know what the exact number would be, but I think like right now it's the same if it's $50 million or more, right? There's no difference in if you sign for $50 million or $500 million. And I think that would at least make teams, small markets, incentivize not to trade Ellie De La Cruz with 2.5 years of control, because even if he doesn't want to resign, well, we're going to get a big return back in draft picks, which you don't have to believe me, the Dodgers traded for draft picks. So it's not just the cute little small market teams that value those picks as well. And then my other quick point is on the realignment. I think that the thing that people are going to say about that is, well, that's just going to incentivize the small owners not to spend more. Maybe. I personally, the way that I've watched the Reds ownership, I think that would motivate them to spend more. I really do. I think, and it might sound silly, but I think Bob Castellini and the other 80%, he's only 20%.
Right.
I think they'd say, you know what? I want to be the top spender out of those 4 teams in that division, because I could actually do that. But when I'm competing with the Cubs, who I can't outspend, there's literally nothing I can do to outspend them, because if I go and I spend $100 million more, the Cubs fans aren't going to be okay. Oh, that's okay. Just keep spending the same. No, they're going to just up it more. I think it would motivate them to spend more. Now it's not going to be crazy. They're not
Right.
going to be in the top 10 or anything, but I do think they would probably spend more when they're feeling like they have a chance than they do now.
I just think that the risk of spending more money with the chance of still not winning more games is such a huge fear factor, in my opinion, for ownership groups, that they just decide to shut it all down. As soon as they can kind of get to the point where they're like, you know what? Let's add 40, 50 extra $1 million to the payroll, right? As soon as they get to that point, I guarantee you that there's some analytical genius or somebody that's in the back saying, hey, I just want you to know, if you're going to spend this $50 million, you might only win two more games. I'd say you might win 3, maybe 3.5 more games. And then all of a sudden they sit back and they think, well, that ain't worth the risk. Because ultimately, I know that we have to still compete with the likes of the Dodgers, to still compete with the likes of the Mets, still compete with the likes of the Phillies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, in your own league, let alone the other league. So I'm with you. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, I'm trying to save some of it because I know there's a lot of people that want this show to be positive, and it has been positive up to this point, and we're going to keep it that way. But I got a good feeling that when it comes to that next CBA, things are going to get nasty. They're going to get really nasty. And it'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out, because this is going to be the first time where I actually think, Nick, that there's going to be a decent population of Major League Baseball fans that are tired of it, and they're going to side. I'm not saying they're going to side completely with the owners, right? But I don't think that there's going to be as much player support as there has ever been, because I think that most of fans just think that if you have a rational brain, you can't expect these smaller ownership groups to be ponying up the likes of what the Dodgers are doing and or the Mets are doing. And yes, I get it. Right now, the Mets are only a game ahead of us, which goes back to my first point, Nick. Why the hell, if you're a small ownership group, would you look and be like, yeah, let's go bankrupt trying to win when we're competing with a team that's only a game ahead of us and they spent $9 billion more than us? That seems to be like a smart idea. Of course, it's all goofy. Major League Baseball has to figure it out, and we'll see if they can.